Alright guys, this is part 2 of the 8-1 on your own problems. The first video we went over just doing the closing entries in the general journal. So we got this information from the worksheet. Now what we're going to do is post each one of these entries to our general ledger. Okay, so we can see that this, when you look at this stuff, you're going to notice that all the information here mimics what was on the worksheet. So for example, when we post the closing entry to sales, sales has a credit balance of 8280. If you look back at the worksheet, sales had a credit balance of 8280. So everything follows the other here. Everything is linked. So again, our general journal, I'm going to go down each one of these because I do have to have a post reference. Sales was debited for 8280. So I'm going to go in my general ledger. Here's my sales account. Type in the 31st. My post reference here would be G24, and we got that from the general journal page 24. And my debit amount is 8280. Okay, so my balance here has a credit of 8280, so if I say, okay, well I'm going to take this credit because I'm debiting it, I'll subtract it. Gives me that little line there. You can go ahead and just type a 0 in the debit column too, because we want to indicate that there is no balance here. There's no mistake. We didn't leave anything empty. We just have closed out sales. So when we start January 1st, we'll have a 0 balance in sales. So this is account 410. So just like we've been doing since the beginning of the year, you're going to want to type 410 in here. Make sure when you do these, guys, the post references don't start up on the closing entry line. Make sure you are in line with the actual account that you're talking to, like this. All right, next is income summary. This account does not have a balance in it, so this will be our first entry. So I'm going to credit income summary for the 8280. So I'm going back to the general ledger. Here's my income summary. And, well, looks like I already did it. So I meant to delete this out of here, but had I done this, I would have put the year and the month, the 31st, my post reference of G24. I would credit that for 8280, and then that would leave me with a beginning credit balance of 8280. This is account number 330, so when I go back to my general journal, I already had it in there. The reason I had that in there, guys, I forgot to delete it out. I have been trying to record this screen deal for about 2 hours now, so hopefully I get it right this time. Okay, next one. These closing entries right here encompass closing out all of our expenses. So our expenses were all credited. Oops, I forgot utilities expense. And our income summary is debited. So I'm going to go back over here and say, okay, I'm going to debit income summary for 2856 in my journal ledger. So again, here's my income summary. Again, on the 31st, we have G24, and it was 2856. So to bring that balance current now, I'll take this credit and subtract the debit. Now, what you need to realize is if we had had a net loss going on here to where these total expenses, let's say these were $10,000, just for example, you would never leave this as a 0 here. What you would do is on this side, I would take the 10,000 and then subtract this amount. You got to think about this. So it would end up leaving us with a debit balance of 1720. Okay. In this case, we do have this 2856 because we had a net income. So our debit here would be nothing. So we're just gonna, again, roll with it. I hope that makes sense. If you have questions on that, please let me know. So again, this is account 330. Go back to my general journal. Put 330 in there. Now I gotta credit every one of the expenses. So if I scroll down here, here's my advertising expense. And this is G24. credit that for 910. Take my credit, subtract off the debit, pop a 0 in there so they both have a line. That account is 510. And keep going. So cash short and over. 31st. Credit that for $2. So I'll take my normal debit balance, subtract the credit, gives me a 0 balance, and I'm going to put a 0 in the credit too, again to indicate that there's nothing missing. And that account is 520. I'm going to move down each one of these expenses. So insurance expense, just going down here. Here's my post, oops. Credit that for the 130. Take my debit balance, subtract the credit. And that is account 530. Next is miscellaneous expense. I need to credit that for 378. So here's my miscellaneous expense. Again, don't forget your post references. Take my credit, subtract off the, take my normal debit balance, subtract off the credit. I'm going to hit tab so I can go right over to the credit balance and hit a 0. And that account number is 540. Pop back into my general journal. Okay, next, credit supplies for 236. Bring that balance update, so normal debit balance, subtract off the credit, and my account number is 540 that I need to use as a reference here. I'm sorry, 550. Okay, last expense to close out, we had utilities expense is going to have a $1,200 debit. We are crediting it for that same amount. Let's bring it back to 0. So let's scroll down here a little bit. Here's utilities. Okay, so again, expenses have normal debit balances, so I'm going to take my debit balance because I'm crediting it. You subtract, hit tab, and again 0. Go back to your general journal and put in the 560. Okay. So now I need to close out the income summary. So I have to debit the income summary because we determined that it would have a credit, which it does. So I'm going to close out income summary by debiting it by the 5424. So I need to scroll back up. All right, here's my income summary. G24. I'm going to debit it for 5424. Again, it's got a credit balance. So I'm going to subtract off this debit. Oops. And then I'm going to put a 0 here just to indicate so I can get that little line. So income summary is now closed out, and that's account 330. Okay. So now this is where we move our net income back into capital. So Sawyer Parker capital right here is going to be credited for that 5424, which is our net income. We got this number again by taking our total sales and subtracting out our total expenses. So we have a credit of 5424 to our capital account. Scroll up just a bit. Here is our Sawyer Parker capital. 31st, general journal page 24. I'm going to credit that by 5424. And we know capital has a normal credit balance, so I'm going to add these two together. So here our capital is $20,310, and that is account 310. So hop back over to the general journal page. You guys probably caught my error right here. I put Sawyer capital. This should be Parker. I had already stopped recording and I didn't want to go back and record everything, so if you caught my mistake, good. So here is where we're closing out drawing. So our drawing had to be credited, so we're going to debit capital for that amount, because we know when the owner again takes money out of the business for personal use, that's going to decrease capital, and we're going to see that here. So we're going to debit capital for the $3,400. So I'll take this credit balance and subtract out this debit. So our capital account balance when we start January 1st will be $16,910. And that is the amount that you would have seen on the balance sheet when you list out the owner's equity capital account. Hang on, let me go ahead and, this is account 310. Put that in there first. Before I close out drawing, let me go back to that. If you remember, current capital is equal to your capital balance plus net income minus drawing. Okay. So if I just kind of line these up, our capital balance is equal to this amount. Okay. Our net income is equal to this amount. And I know my drawing that I'm going to have to close out is this 3,400 that I see right here. Okay, so if I do what this formula says and I take equal sign, so this is my capital balance plus my net income minus drawing, notice these two numbers match. And again, this is what you would have seen on the balance sheet under the the owner's equity capital account section. So again, this all ties together. Go ahead and delete these. Okay, so last account to close out is drawing, and we need to credit that for the $3,400 so that we can start fresh in January. So here's our drawing account. Got the 31st, G24, credit that for $3,400, and I'll take this debit balance, subtract, credit. So our last entry will be this 320 right here that we will put over in the general journal. Okay, so that wraps up how you did the 8-1 on your own. Again, this problem was found on page 222 in your textbook, which I hope you guys all have. If you're missing any materials or textbooks, please let me know immediately and I will figure out a way to get that to you. And then again, the packets that I sent home had all this information, but I am moving forward, going to put this on Google Classroom. So you'll be able to do this in Google Sheets. Guys, if you have questions as you move forward with this, please let me know. Definitely want to support you in your learning. I hope these videos help you. I know it's kind of boring, but maybe I'll figure out a way to tell you some jokes or something. No promises. We'll see. Anyway, I hope you guys are all doing well. Wish we were in class, but I'm really trying to support you with this so you're not just reading your book. So let me know if this is helping. Appreciate your feedback. We will talk to you soon. Thanks.